by the wizardry. Here we have David Marsh joining us, one of our sponsors representing our sponsor of Stowmarket Town Council. So David, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. Hello, Colin, and hello, everyone else.
Yeah, great. And David, I know when we've chatted before, you talked about being able to get this marvellous backdrop behind you, and I can see it is here, isn't it? So, yeah, tell us a little bit about your backdrop before we move into the formal questions.
It's real. It's not. Yeah. So a few years ago, my boss had the idea of, he wanted an aerial shot of Stowmarket in our meeting room, and so this was as high. I could only get a certain high definition of photo. And I just wasn't sure if it was going to be high definition enough. But so I kind of took a risk, and it was either going to be an expensive mistake and I was going to be in trouble for, or it would look great. And thankfully, it looks great. And I've, pre-COVID, I had lots of meetings in here, and kind of people, you can just see them trying to work out where their house is, and like, oh, when was that taken? Because that part of Cedars Park isn't there yet, or oh look, my mum lives there. So no, it's a good talking point and gets people going.
Great, good. Well, thank you for joining us today. And again, as we heard with our interview earlier on, these sessions are to introduce the sponsor, find a little bit about them, maybe what they can offer businesses to help them bounce back, but particularly the top tips, experiences that you've had to help them. So, David, you are the events and theatre manager for the Regal, but for Stowmarket Town Council as well. So tell us a little bit about yourself and actually what that actually entails then as the kind of events and theatre manager.
So I joined Stowmarket Town Council nearly 16 years ago as a cinema consultant, and then kind of after a couple of years of consultancy, I took over as general manager. About 6 years ago, I kind of transferred as the events and theatre manager. So I organise a lot of the town's events, so or help organise them. So like Stow Fiesta, we have music festival, 2-day music festival. We have Chiltern Fields, Christmas lights switch on. I work with the Royal British Legion for their remembrance parade and church services, and Stowmarket Town Awards. So yes, anything outside, I'm doing it. So when I've got my events hat on, I very much want nice weather. When I'm back in the cinema, I'm praying for rain. So it's I'm conflicted.
Yeah, so that's great. So there's a range of things that you do, but one of the things that we thought would be useful to chat through in our session today to help businesses was just to explore this bounce back for business idea, which obviously is the key thing we're looking at today. And we've titled your talk "Phoenix from the Ashes" because the Regal has a history of being a phoenix from the ashes. So tell us a little bit about how the Regal has bounced back in its history and what's helped it to do that.
Yes, there's been a lot of bouncing back, which is obviously the positive way of saying it, but there's also been a lot of like, oh no, it's not going very well. In the past, thankfully. Built in 1936 and part of the Mars Limited, and then was very, very successful within the town for the first 30 years. Kind of by the end of the 60s, cinema kind of bubble has started to burst everywhere. Admissions aren't what they were. And the cinemas are looking to sell it. It's on the market for a while and no one's interested. So it looks like it's going to become a carpet warehouse and leaving Stowmarket with no cinema. At the kind of 11th hour, Stowmarket Urban Council, as they were, kind of who I don't think particularly wanted to run it, but didn't want to see, the provision of a cinema leave the town. They stepped in and they bought it. And then kind of over the next few years kind of started to kind of refurbish or invest in certain areas. When it opened, it was just a cinema, no stage, and it sat 600 people, which even with no stage and no bar, I still struggle to see how you fit 600 people in that space, but apparently it did. A stage was built, dressing rooms, and a bar over the years. By the kind of late 90s, early 2000s, things had been going well in the 80s as the town council turned it around, but by the late 90s, early 2000s, unfortunately, it's not going very well again. The council looked to decide what to do. I think by that point, it's only getting in 6,000 admissions a year, and it's running a deficit. So they put it out to the people of Stowmarket as to what they should do, whether it should be closed, whether it should be invested in, whether it should be, different management companies should be brought in. It was decided that a cinema consultancy firm would be brought in, who I worked for, and then we set upon trying to kind of turn things around for the Regal. I think our first job was kind of installing a new sound system, because it was pretty bad, pretty muffled when I first started. I think on my first day I was told to bring 3 jumpers because it was really cold. And I kind of laughed and thought, oh, they're just joking. I was out to my car searching for a jumper after about half an hour. They certainly weren't lying. It was very cold. We set about turning it around, and things got better and better. I think in the first year we more than doubled admissions, and then again we doubled them again the next year. I was then offered the job as actual general manager, which was great. 2008 was our best year, I think, on record ever, with a lot of help from Mamma Mia. It was going all very well, and we had a refurbishment the year before. And then sadly in 2009, when everything was going great, we had an arson attack on the 16th of September, which caused us to be shut for 6 months and caused £500,000 worth of damage. And at the time, it felt like kind of the end of my world, because we'd really felt that we'd started to turn it around, and we'd turn things which hadn't had a great image for certain things. We'd turned those, and it was fairly heartbreaking. But the people of Stowmarket are a hardy bunch, and it was so lovely how many kind of messages we got about and how we had to get it back, and Stowmarket wasn't Stowmarket without the Regal, and we were very pleased 6 months later to be reopening the venue. And I think in a way, as much as I would never have admitted it at the time, it was people saw what the town would be like without a cinema for 6 months, and it kind of almost galvanised people into we really have to support this. And then kind of admissions went from strength to strength. So up to the point of 2019, we had 70,000 admissions. So for kind of a little more than 10 years before, we'd only had 6,000. So they'd more gone up by more than 10 times. So which was absolutely fantastic, and testament to the support of the people of Stowmarket. But we were getting to the point we could kind of grow no more. A lot of the screenings were full. The kids club was full. So the town council, in partnership with the district council, set about a partnership project for an additional 2 screens and cafe bar to be built. And we closed on the 20th of February 2020. I'd heard of COVID, but it wasn't something I was particularly worried about at the time. Planning to reopen in December 2020, and suffice to say that didn't quite happen, and there was a few bumps along the way.
Yeah. So, I mean, what we're hearing there is you have literally risen from the ashes, and not you personally, obviously, but the Regal, and a number of challenges. So, actually, as a centre, it's gone through the mill, but each time it's come back. And you've just hinted there that actually, some things haven't gone quite as planned in the lockdown, like for many of us. There've been some quite challenging times. So, what challenges have you faced in the last year, and what has helped you kind of overcome those?
I think I'm trying to think of the top 10 of challenges. There's been a lot of challenges.
Well, you can narrow it down to 2 or 3 if you like.
No, exactly. Yeah. I'm just going to give you my favourite 1,000. I think kind of the biggest ones is very sadly a lot of very good companies have gone out of business. We've been planning this work for a very long time, and we really took a huge effort over what seats we were going for, what kind of curtains, the tables and chairs in the cafe bar, things we really agonised over. The company that we chose to install the seats were been going for 60 years, a very safe pair of hands. Unfortunately, 2 months into the project, they went out of business, because all the big chains of cinema and big theatres who perhaps had a programme of expansion or refurbishment, COVID came, so everyone just put the brakes on everything. If you hadn't kind of already started, you weren't going to do it. So their full order books suddenly became empty, and there were still payments, loan payments, etc., to be made. So so suddenly our seating company were no longer trading. So then we tried to find another seating company. We chose another one that had been going for again over 20 years. 6 weeks later, they stopped replying to our emails. Unfortunately, they'd had financial issues as well, so they weren't able to supply us either. We've ended up going for a company in Southend-on-Sea, so absolutely fantastic seating company, wonderful seats. But as you can imagine, the money doesn't go quite so far as Southend-on-Sea as it does in downtown Poland. So, and I think so that's been difficult. Also, we planned to do Regal on the Road at the John Peel Centre, so it was very important that we didn't want to leave Stowmarket without a cinema provision. So we were working with our good friends at the John Peel Centre. The plan when we closed in February at the Regal was that we were going to open at the John Peel Centre on the 2nd of April, launching with a new James Bond film. I think that was the first time that changed a date, and there's been subsequent changes since. So obviously, we were working very hard when to get it so we could open it. When first lockdown came, I think there were about 3 different launch leaflets we'd created. As first of all, James Bond was cancelled, and then Peter Rabbit was cancelled, and then we were working on a third, and we were starting to think this is probably not going to happen at all. We finally opened it in July, and that was absolutely fantastic, and we operated until Christmas. But I think what we've learned is that you absolutely still need to make plans, but you have to make these plans as fluid as you can, and nothing is set in stone. And things which film release dates, I can't remember anything in my 25 years in cinema. I don't remember one ever changing more. I think probably the nearest to a film coming out was probably 3 months out, but it changed its release date. We've had films release dates change 10 days before. It's just unheard of. And I think so, in that respect, James Bond, who they'd spent over £10 million on marketing, and then they had to change the date. They then changed that date, and they spent some more on marketing, and then they've had to change that date as well. But they still, a huge company like that realizes that they've got such a good product there, but even though they may have kind of spent some money on marketing that's ended up being perhaps not required, it's still worth holding on and doing the job properly at a proper time.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to reassure anyone that if the Regal places an order with you, it doesn't mean you'll go bust. That was just, as we know, a particularly challenging time for businesses. So be reassured of that. But it's good to hear, David, a top tip actually for all of us as businesses to make plans, but to have that flexibility and fluidity that you talked about, because you have to be dexterous, don't you? That's a top tip for us as businesses, helping us bounce back. So thank you for that. Well, the good news is I understand that there are plans for the Regal to come to fruition. So kind of tell us, what are the plans, and also, what impact do you think the new Regal can have to support businesses actually bounce back as well?
Well, obviously, our plans are we open a wonderful new Regal. We're hoping that that we can be doing that within the next 6 to 8 weeks. Watch your space. Perhaps if this had been in a week's time, I might have been able to give you a better kind of actual date. But we're at the point where able to be able to tell people. There's triple the choice. I mean, we only had one screen previously, and we tried to do as best we could with it. But 2 weeks a year, the local amateur dramatics, the Stowmarket Operatic Dramatic Society, would come in, and that just meant no films for a week. So if you were an Amdram lover, fantastic. But if you weren't, there was no chance to come and see a film. We used to make difficult choices. We've been busy enough for a long time that we could take any film we wanted to the day it came out. If you take a film the day it comes out, you have to show that film in that screen with no other films for at least 2 to 3 weeks. And sometimes, with James Bond, we would always have taken that on release date. But with an Avengers, we'd go, Avengers would do great on a Saturday and a Sunday. But how many senior citizens are going to come and see it at 2:30 on a Wednesday? Is that the best thing for the community? I'm not sure. But with 3 screens, we're able to kind of always have something on for everyone, which is absolutely superb. Also, the new cafe bar. I mean, I think going to cinema now is, it's more than just a film for a lot of people. It's about the experience and the before, the after, the social event, and having a cocktail afterwards, or having a pizza before. And we weren't able to do that. We could absolutely signpost to other places, but that was not within our control. But we will be able to do that. But wider to businesses. We will now have a space which you would be able to use for a conference, We'll have 3 spaces, or or product launch. Previously with our 200-seater auditorium, it had to be a fairly sizable conference to make it not, people not lost in it. We probably had 5 or 6 a year, but with our new auditoriums, with kind of around 60 and around 80 seated, it just makes it that much more doable and that much more affordable. If I'm kind of renting you my small screen, so yes, we're going to be hopefully there for business, and we'll absolutely have as many conversations as we can about what we can do for the business, but also for the community.
So there's a real opportunity for businesses to promote themselves with you, but also to use your facilities. And as you say, you've got a range of sizes to support that. So just as we draw this part of the interview to a close and we see what people have put in the chat for you, what would you say from all your experiences of, being the phoenix from the ashes, what would you say are your top tips for business, just for those that perhaps have also found it challenging?
I think my tip I said before about, pre-COVID, I would say make plans and stick to them. That would have been my golden rule. And unless you're making plans or setting targets, you don't know if you're succeeding. So if 18 months ago, that would have been where I stopped talking, because I think that is absolutely what I believe. But I think the need to be fleet of foot has been extremely important. Throughout the whole project, and actually it's something I think we will take forward. I'm in a really lucky position, and I completely accept. I work for a town council, but I work in a building where people love it, and people are going there to have fun. On the times when I'm kind of in the council offices, and kind of they're dealing with kind of real world problems and stuff, fly tipping, or kind of problems in with graffiti and stuff like that, kind of boring stuff that's quite fast. I'm kind of looking after people on a night out, and people are excited. And I've been there when people have proposed. I hear the stories of like, oh, my nan and granddad went on their first date here, and if it wasn't for the Regal, we wouldn't, I wouldn't be existing. And I get to hear that again and again and again. So kind of, it's very easy for me to give some really lofty advice, and but I am in a very lucky position. We are kind of the only cinema in town, and obviously what Mid Suffolk and Stowmarket Town Council have done is to safeguard that. And because if we were owned by a private company, we wouldn't be able to do some of the kind of dementia friendly screenings we do, some of the autism friendly screenings we're planning, some of the charity screenings we're able to do. They just wouldn't happen. And as for having a stage, I think that would have gone a while ago because of how successful cinema would have been. So I think I stick to my first bit of advice, because I think the rest of it is fairly. The rest of my experience is fairly unique, because I'm quite lucky to be in the industry that I'm in.
Great. So thank you for that top tip, which is to be fluid in your plans. And thank you, David, for your enthusiasm. If anybody was in any doubt about how David feels about his job, I think we're really clear now that he's got a privileged job and loves, helping people enjoy themselves. And if clearly one of the things for you, if you fancy proposing to anyone, heading to the Regal is the place to do it. So that's great. So David, thank you for answering those questions. Let's just see if we've got any questions for us in the chat. I can't see any in at the moment, but our lovely kind of chatty person, which is Shelley today. Shelley, have we got any kind of questions that have come to you for David?
Yeah, there's a comment there from Alan Scott, if we can unmute Alan.
Yeah, Alan, do you want to ask your question of David? Thanks, Shelley.
Yeah, really just to say, David, I was privileged to see the plans for the Regal actually before the construction work began. I was hugely impressed with them then. Really looking forward to actually seeing the real thing once we can get in there. I mean, I've seen obviously the outside of the building. It's really looking great, isn't it? But what also impressed me very much, and I wanted to mention that to other people here, is the care that you and the team have taken to be talking to neighbouring properties and neighbouring businesses, and with businesses in particular, making sure that you work with them rather than competing with them, so that it works in the good of Stowmarket as a town. So thank you for doing that. I'd like other people to know you did.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think yes, the stakeholder engagement work we did was very much a two-way street, and yes, it was. It helped us, and we worked obviously with you guys, but also Stowmarket Disability Forum, and there were things we thought we knew, and we were saying about we would have a wheelchair lift within the auditorium, within a corridor, which meant that then people could have access to the stage, and we thought we were being great doing that. But actually, then talking to wheelchair users from Stowmarket, they were saying, no, that kind of brings attention to, we don't want to be kind of waiting there for this, this slow lift to be like in front of everyone and everyone's piling through and it's in the way. We would prefer you work harder and actually try to make it level. So through some wonder engineering, we've managed to do that. But actually, if you'd asked me to guess what the disability forum were going to come up with, that wasn't going to be it. I thought we'd get a pat on the back for that, for the lift. So I'm so pleased we did that. And talking to local businesses, then there were no neighbours, things we thought which were a problem, about midnight get outs for live shows. Most of our neighbours were saying, oh, well, we live near a theatre, as long as no one's shouting, we're happy with that. But what does annoying us is this. And it was like, oh, okay, we didn't really kind of, we didn't realise that was what it would be. So I think the stakeholder engagement was hugely, hugely useful. And I can't give you a date yet, but the chamber or members of the chamber will be invited for a sneak peek before we open. So we want to thank all of the stakeholder engagement parties for helping us. And as part of that, thank you. We're going to invite you to an event, but I can't give you a date because it's all a bit hush hush at the moment, but hopefully by the end of next week I'll be able to give you one.
Great.
We'll look forward to that very much, David. Thank you.
Yes. So Alan, thank you for asking and stating that information for David, because actually it's helped us to realise the importance when we're bouncing back to really take time to find out from people what they're looking for, and David's really highlighted that. And the second thing, just to highlight in what David said, is anybody is welcome to come to a chamber meetings. You don't have to become a member, but if ever you needed a reason to join formally the chamber, David has just given that to you, that you can get a sneaky peeky at the Regal. So do contact our Olivia, Lily, who sorts out new members. So if you want to join the chamber because you want a sneaky peeky, then feel free to do so. We've got a couple of questions that have come up on the chat. So first, a question that we're going to ask Chris Chenery to ask, and then Jo Moss has a comment she'd like to share with you, David. So if we start with Chris Chenery, do you want to unmute yourself and then ask David your question?
Okay, thanks. Hi, David. Thanks. In your presentation, you mentioned about obviously your previous rule would have been to make a plan and stick to it, and you mentioned you obviously had to go through several different seat suppliers. In amongst everything else, have you had to have a good hard look at the plans and make any adaptations to it that you wouldn't have necessarily done had you been able to plough ahead as originally planned?
That's a good question. I mean, a phrase I don't think I'd heard of or taken any notice of was value engineering. My God, have I heard it and used it a lot in the last year. So some things have ended up costing more money. This because of the risk of some businesses, getting into financial trouble. Yes, absolutely. I think 90% of our businesses didn't get into financial trouble. Just before I kind of start and make it sound like we're if you do business with a Regal, you're going to go bust. That's 90% of them did a great job. But because some of the kind of high ticket things, like say the chairs, for example, we had to pay for 50% of those up front. So that meant that we had some surety, we had to kind of arrange an insurance policy so that should that company also have financial troubles, but we would still be able to get our money back. So some things have ended up costing extra, and there isn't an unlimited pot of money. So we've made some changes, and we think they're changes kind of around the side, if you like. So my management office was going to have suspended ceiling, should we say, and it was some nice office furniture. We've now got second-hand office furniture. We've got you can see all the pipes in the ceiling. So we've tried to make the changes in ways that people aren't really going to see. And some of the light fittings which the designers come up with, which were lovely, but I don't want to. When I saw how much they would have cost, I thought it was a print error. we were, it meant that we had to go back and look at kind of different ones which look which look similar but were less. So yes, we things are different, but we've still got three new screens. We've got cafe bar. It's still going to look, there's still going to be a wow factor. There's still a glass frontage. I mean, it would have been obviously a lot cheaper to have not done that, and still making it a landmark within the town. So yes, there's been some changes. I hope, and I don't think anyone will come around and say, well, that's a corner cut. But I know I take to my grave some of these things which we would have loved to have done, but unfortunately the money had to be spent in a different way, because absolutely the budget is the budget, and a lot of it is public money, and it's absolutely right, but it should an amount was decided, and that's what we should stick to.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Chris, for asking that question. And thank you, David, for sharing that. And I guess a key tip, again, if we're thinking about what can we learn from this scenario, is just being really clear on what is important for you. So as David's just talked about there, actually, it's this bit out front that's important. The stuff at the back in the office, I can cut that back on. And so if you're meeting challenges like that as a business, it's just being really clear in what is it that's important, and keep the focus on that bit that's important. So thanks, Chris, for asking that question. Joe's got a comment, which I think, again, would be really helpful, for David to hear, but also for us as businesses, just to be reminded a really key aspect, again, about what's important about connecting with people. So, Joe, if you want to unmute yourself and then, give David this nice news, perhaps.
Yeah, hi David. So I just wanted to say thank you to you. So as we've got a young family and we've enjoyed the Regal for a number of years, and you're just a really friendly face, and the whole team and yourself are just always really welcoming at the Regal. It's almost a bit like you feel like you're coming home when you go to the Regal, because everyone's so friendly and there's familiar faces there. So thank you. I hope it all goes well.
Thank you. It's really lovely to hear. I think kind of to go on to talk about that. When we first started, when I was working for Cinema Consultancy, we couldn't refurbish or anything straight away, and it was cold, and the seats were rubbish, and the sound wasn't great. And the thing we could change straight away was kind of get some lovely customer facing people, and to be people who are really interested in films and theatre and stuff. And that's what we've always continued, because that's quite that stuff as far as we're concerned is quite easy. And over the years, the kind of 15 years later, yes, we're getting the amazing we're getting the multi-million-pound refurbishment, but kind of I love that what you've said, because that's what I look for when I go somewhere, the friendly greeting to people, the fact that they remember you a little bit, or they're as excited as you are about what you're coming to see. So thank you. And if obviously if it wasn't for kind of families and people like you, we wouldn't have had the business case to be able to kind of to do the refurbishment and expansion, because we would have perhaps closed like a lot of other cinemas. My childhood cinema, in Braintree in Essex, is a Wetherspoons now, and better that than it be knocked down. But I'd still rather it was a cinema, and so lots of places have lost theirs, and through the sport, Stowmarket still got theirs. So huge thanks.
So, David, thank you for and thank you, Joe, for asking not the question, but raising and telling that to David. I think it's great to hear, but it's also great for us to hear just that reminder of the importance of being the friendly face, creating the family feel. And again, as we're looking to bounce back for businesses, it's absolutely crucial. It's just being the friendly face. So, David, thank you for being the friendly face for us today. Thank you for telling us the story of being the phoenix from the ashes. You're looking very well on being a phoenix. And if you want to meet David in person, we'll hear soon, won't we, as to when the opening will be. You can come and meet that friendly face in person and see if Joe's experience is going to be your experience too. And just another little plug that if you want that sneaky peeky, then you know where to come. It's join and be part of the Stowmarket Chamber. So, David, thank you. Thank you for sharing what you shared today. Let's all give David a little round of applause, and a cyber round of applause as well. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. As I'm sure you've noticed, I quite like talking about the Regal anyway. So, I probably would have given good money to do it anyway. So, thanks for the invite. I really do appreciate it.
Great. Lovely. Thank you, David. And I'll hand back to Kim now for the next final part.